He kōna I purangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
Kia ora. Just before we get into this episode, it's a generally pretty upbeat story, but it does include a Māori Pirirākau or legend that deals with some difficult themes. So just take care when listening. A million people walk around the base of the mount every year. It's a cool place for a leisurely stroll. You can spot the odd seal in the ocean, the cruise or cargo ships coming into the harbour entrance, not to mention the stunning view from the summit. The mount is also known as Mount Maunganui. Maunganui means big mountain. Every summer, this place is swarming with people. But there's another name, and that name is Mauao. It's a name that is about unrequited love.
I call it a love story. Some people call it a sad story, but I think in the end it's one of the most beautiful stories.
So if you're heading to the Mount this summer, here's a bit of history to add to your cap. This is No My Town, a podcast about Aotearoa place names with this bonus summer episode. Ko Justine Murray, aho. Tommy Wilson is an author and a columnist with the local paper, the Bay of Plenty Times. In November, he published his coffee book, Paper Boy Writer. It's a collection of his 800 columns he's written for the Times. He even writes about the Mount back in the day.
My first job was selling papers over there at the Oceanside pub. When we were kids, the hot pool wasn't there. You know, everyone would come to Mount Maunganui to have a good time.
Tommy and I are sitting on the veranda of a cabin at the base of the mount, so we're surrounded by lush native bush. And in Tommy's day, this area looked really different.
There was bumper boats and stuff down there. There was rubber mattresses to hire over there. My first job was in this very motor camp that we're sitting at now.
We're sitting in the motor camp.
Yeah.
We can see the twin, well, our version of the twin towers that I grew up calling them.
Yeah.
So from where we are sitting, we can see the ocean flanked by two high-rise apartment buildings, or the Ocean Resort Twin Towers. So the mount was like a playground. Moturiki Island, which is really close to the main beach, was an old pā site. It was transformed into a quarry to excavate the stone to help build the railway lines. In 1966, the quarry became marine land, home to an outdoor aquarium with dolphins and other marine life. Later on, marine land transformed to Leisure Island with a bunch of hydro slides and whānau-friendly rides.
You could hire donkeys on the beach and have a donkey ride. You could come across from Tauranga on a Falkland ferry for about, sixpence, Adams Bruce ice cream, no harbour bridge, come over to Salisbury Wharf, walk over to the mount and hire a rubber lilo, which were amazing mats, or they had bumper boats here, canoes, red and yellow ones here. It was just like, summertime at the mount, bro. Smell the blingin' Coppertone suntan lotion, see the bodgies, hear the V8 cars. It doesn't get any better than that.
Well, if that doesn't conjure up images of an idyllic summer, I don't know what does. Today, the Mount still has that buzz about it. Instead of bumper boats, there's surfing lessons. Instead of V8 cars, well, those are still around. You'll also find, Ford Rangers and e-bikes. There's every kind of coffee and ice cream you could want, and a good place to get your tan on. The Mount is, as I mentioned before, short for Mount Maunganui. Maunganui, according to some of the local history, was named by Tamatea Arikinui, who captained the Tākitamu waka. And he gave the name as the waka came into the harbour. But its other name, in te reo Māori, is Mauao, and this name goes back much, much further. Reon Tuanau is from the local iwi Ngai and Te Whānau a Tauwhao, and he's involved in a range of environmental issues in Tauranga. And Reon tells a fairly good yarn, so I asked him to break down the story for us.
Kura te wini, kura te wana, Mauao, me hukurangi ngā maunga kōhatu, tai timu, tai pari ngā awa tere nei, waiau te awa te moana tauranga, o tā whiwhi te whenua e. O tā whiwhi te whenua, ma tātua te waka, toroa te tangata e, hui e, tā eki e. Now, we're surrounded by the Kaimai Ranges, the Pai Maunga o ngā Kaimai. Along the Pai Maunga, there are many mountains. On this side, the southern side of the Kaimai Ranges, the tallest peak is called Tāne Wainuku. Big chiefly mountain, big tough trees on him, just looks very much like a rangatira. Next to him is another high peak of the Kaimai Ranges. Her name is Pūwhenua. A lot of flowering trees, a lot of beautiful birds on her, and she's just tino a tāhua, he puhi, a princess.
Pūwhenua was gorgeous. She was a beautiful mountain. She and o Tāne Wainuku loved each other. But nearby there was a third mountain, and it lived in a place called
Wauku, or Oropi, it's known as today. And up there was this other maunga, and it was quite insignificant, referred to as a pononga, a nameless slave mountain, insignificant. But this maunga had a secret love that grew for Pūwhenua, and it got to a point, I suppose, he couldn't hold back anymore, and he said that he confessed his love to Pūwhenua. He said, "Ka nui taku aroha ki a koe Pūwhenua, hara mai ki a hau. My love is so great for you, Pūwhenua, come to me." It said that she turned around and scorned him and said, "Ko o tāne wainuku taku rangatira, ko o tāne wainuku taku hoa. Kare au I te pirangi a koe, I don't want you."
This pononga, this enslaved mountain with no name, felt the sting of rejection.
This was said to have shamed this mountain, this nameless mountain at that time, so much so that he actually wanted to, some say, drown in under the ocean. I like to think that he more wanted to hide in shame under the ocean.
So the mountain, feeling pretty down on himself, bereft and sad, he wanted to leave the bush at Wauku to hide in the ocean, in the arms of Tangaroa. But he needed help to make that journey.
To do this feat, he had to call upon what we call the patu pairihe. And the patu pairihe are like magical beings that live in the ngahere. Specifically, these patu pairihe come from the Hautere forest, just on the other side of the Kaimai Range there. And so he called upon the patu pairihe, and they arrived to his beckoning. And he asked them if they could then go and hide him in shame.
E hika tuake ki runga rā, whētiki taua hei tamatu.
And then they started to perform a karakia.
Kumea ki te uru, uea ki te tonga.
Kukume, that's the pulling of the ropes as they move the mountain.
Hiki nuku, hiki rangi, I arara.
And they heaved and they hoed and the mountain started to move.
The patupairihe, or fairy magical creatures, carried this mountain with special rope. They moved from the hinterlands towards the sea, and in doing so, carved out a large river in its wake.
It created what we call the Waimapu River, and it's actually named after this event. Wai being water, and mapu being sorrow or sadness. And so it got down to the Waimapu estuary and it started to make its way towards the ocean. And that's actually the pathway we refer specifically to as Te Awa Nui.
Which means the great river forged by the mountain.
Anyway, all this happened under the cover of darkness because the patu pairihe do not work in the daytime. They have to be in the cover of the ngahere, the cover of the forest, because if they get hit by the sun rays, they perish. And as they started to heave the mountain, they got to the shores of the ocean there and ka'awatea.
From darkness to light, it was the dawning of a new day, ka'awatea. The patupairihe stopped in their tracks. They couldn't finish the job of dragging this mountain to the depths of the ocean.
They had to make a decision, and so the decision was that they needed to get back to the forest. And as the sun rose, this mountain was then given its name, Mauao. Mau means to be caught, and ao means the dawning of a new day. Put those together, we have the name of that beautiful, majestic mountain. The mountain was fixed where it is today.
Tama
That karakia, or prayer that empowered the Patupaerehe to drag, to pull Mauao to its place today, is sung as a waiata. It's a fitting song here in Tauranga to sing in times of sorrow.
And it just talks about the experience and the events that took place as that mountain was being pulled to the site that it is today. And it stands there as a sentinel to greet all ships, vessels that come into our harbour. It stands as probably the most iconic site in Tauranga, the most sacred site for us as tangata whenua in Tauranga Moana. Because at one point or another, our ancestors had to ascend to the top in one fashion or another to perform the karakia for safe arrival, Thanksgiving, but also for future prosperity for the future generations.
And there's a few side notes to this story. Here's Reon Tuanau again.
Now, some say that some of the Patupaerehe didn't make it back to the darkness of the forest, that some of those boulders there around the bottom are Patupaerehe that have been turned into stone.
For Tommy Wilson, the Mount is like a national landmark.
Here we are on this beautiful little peninsula, on the apron strings of this beautiful Maunga mountain behind us. That is kind of like, I call it our Eiffel Tower. It's our Statue of Liberty. It's our Opera House. This beautiful sentinel that stands here guarding this harbour called Te Awa Nui, or Harbour of Tauranga, the safe anchorage. So it's fitting.
So that's the story of Mauao. So the name Mount Maunganui, it's a popular hotspot today. A lot of people still call it the Mount. Kia ora and thanks for listening. A special thanks to Tommy Wilson, Reon Tuanau and Kira Williams. If you think I should head to your town to find out more about the place where you live, you can email me, podcast@rnz.co.nz. Thanks to Liz Garton for her help with this episode. Production coordinator is Brianna Juditich Greg. The sound engineer for this episode was Phil Benge. Find and follow Know My Town, that's Naumai Town, wherever you get your podcasts. Ko Justine Murray tēnei, noho ora mai.